The dust-laden wind carried the scent of gunpowder and desperation, as Nora Matthews stumbled into Durango, Colorado, her once fine dress torn and mudded from days of hard travel. The year was 1883, and the mining town bustled with the particular chaos that defined the American frontier, a place where fortunes were made and lost between sunrise and sunset, where a person could reinvent themselves if they were brave enough or desperate enough. Nora was certainly the latter. She clutched a small leather satchel to her chest, containing everything she had left in the world. Her auburn hair, normally pinned in neat curls, hung in tangled waves around her face, partially obscuring the purple bruise blooming across her left cheekbone. The wound was fresh, a parting gift from the husband she'd fled in Denver. The main street of Durango stretched before her, lined with hastily constructed wooden buildings that had sprung up after the railroad arrived 2 years prior. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly as Nora made her way toward what appeared to be a general store, her legs trembling with exhaustion. "You look like you could use a drink of water, madam," a deep voice called out. Nora turned to see a tall man leaning against the hitching post outside the store. He straightened up, removing his well-worn Stetson to reveal hair the color of wheat fields. His face was tanned from long days under the Colorado sun, but his blue eyes were kind in a way that made her chest tighten. "I'm fine," she said automatically, the lie brittle on her tongue, "begging your pardon, but you're swaying where you stand." He took a careful step toward her as one might approach a spooked horse. "Name's Adam Eastwood. I own a ranch about 5 miles outside of town." Nora's vision began to blur around the edges, the street tilting beneath her feet. "I don't need," she began, but her knees buckled before she could finish the sentence. Adam moved with surprising speed for a man his size, catching her before she hit the dirt. "Easy now," he murmured, his voice rumbling against her as he supported her weight. "Please," Nora whispered, gripping his shirt sleeve with desperate fingers. "Please don't tell anyone I'm here." Adam's expression remained neutral, but his eyes took in her bruised face and the way she kept glancing over her shoulder. "Let's get you someplace safe first," he said quietly. "Then we can talk about who might be looking for you." He helped her to a bench outside the general store and disappeared inside, returning moments later with a tin cup of water. Nora drank greedily, the cool liquid reviving her enough to feel a flush of embarrassment. "Thank you," she said, returning the cup. "I'm afraid I've inconvenienced you, Mr. Eastwood." "Adam," he corrected gently, "and it's no inconvenience. You're new to Durango, I take it." Nora nodded, not volunteering more information. "I need to find work and a place to stay." Adam considered her for a moment. "Mrs. Sullivan at the boarding house might have a room, though she asks a lot of questions. As for work," he hesitated. "My sister-in-law runs the dress shop. She could use help, especially with her condition." "Condition?" "Expecting her 3rd child," Adam explained. "My brother Thomas would be grateful for someone to help her. She's stubborn about keeping the shop open despite being sick as a dog most mornings." Hope flickered within Nora. She had worked as a seamstress before her marriage. "I'm quite skilled with a needle." "I figured as much, looking at that dress," Adam said, nodding to her garment, which despite its current state showed evidence of fine tailoring. "Must have been something special before your journey?" Nora tensed, wondering how much he had surmised about her situation. Before she could respond, a commotion erupted from the saloon across the street. A burly man stumbled out, shouting profanities at someone inside. Adam frowned. "That's Sheriff Daniel's problem, not ours. Come on, I'll take you to the boarding house before he notices us." "You don't understand," Nora said, her voice barely audible. "I can't. I shouldn't stay in town if he finds me." She trailed off, the words catching in her throat. Adam's gaze sharpened. "Who is he, madam?" Nora looked away. "My husband, former husband, he's influential. He'll have telegrams sent. There will be posters with my face." Her hand unconsciously touched the bruise on her cheek. Understanding dawned in Adam's eyes, followed by something harder, colder. "Well," he said after a moment, Seems to me Durango might not be the safest place for you after all." Nora's shoulders slumped. She'd walked for days, hoping that this small mining town, newly established and far from Denver, might offer refuge. "I don't know where else to go." Adam was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing his options. Finally, he said, "I need help at my ranch. My housekeeper left 2 months ago to care for her ailing mother. Place is a mess and I'm a terrible cook." He gave her a careful look. "It's isolated. No one would think to look for you there." Nora stared at him, searching for deception or ulterior motives in his face but finding only earnest concern. Still, she'd been fooled by a handsome face before. "Why would you help a stranger?" "Let's just say I've seen what men like your husband can do," Adam said, his jaw tightening momentarily. "And I believe everyone deserves a second chance." He gestured to her satchel. "Is that all you have?" Nora nodded, clutching it tighter. "Then it's settled. Unless you've got a better plan." She didn't. Exhaustion and hunger had worn away her resolve to keep moving. "I can cook and clean," she said, "and I'll earn my keep." Adam smiled, the expression transforming his weathered face. "Never doubted it for a minute. My wagon's this way." He offered his hand to help her up, and after a moment's hesitation, Nora took it. The journey to Adam's ranch took them away from Durango's bustle and into the stunning landscape of southwestern Colorado. Massive mesas and pine-covered mountains surrounded them, with the Animas River cutting through valleys of rich green grass. Nora, despite her fatigue, couldn't help but be awed by the wild beauty. "It's breathtaking," she murmured. Adam glanced at her, a small smile playing at his lips. "That it is, makes the hard winters and dry summers worth it. How long have you lived here?" "Since '78. Came out after the war with my brother Thomas. He was Army too, but I was just a replacement soldier at the end. Barely saw any fighting." He clicked his tongue at the horses as they began to climb a gentle slope. "We pooled our money and bought the land when it was still cheap. Thomas met his wife Emma in town and decided shopkeeping suited him better than ranching, so the place is mine now." Nora nodded, trying to picture Adam Eastwood as a soldier. It wasn't difficult. He had that straight-backed discipline about him. "You weren't tempted to find a wife as well?" Adam chuckled. "Oh, plenty tempted, just never found a woman willing to put up with a stubborn rancher and this much isolation." He gestured to the vast emptiness around them. "Most ladies prefer town life with neighbors and social calls." As they crested the hill, Adam's ranch came into view. A sturdy 2-story house stood at the center, surrounded by corrals, a barn, and several outbuildings. It wasn't grand, but it was well built and neatly maintained, at least from the outside. "It's not much," Adam said, almost apologetically, "but it's solid. Gets cold in winter, but the fireplace works well enough." "It looks wonderful," Nora said sincerely. After days of sleeping in barns and under the stars, a real house seemed like luxury beyond measure. Adam helped her down from the wagon when they reached the yard, his hands strong but gentle at her waist. "Let me show you around." The interior of the house was indeed in a state of bachelor disarray, though not as bad as Nora had feared. The main floor consisted of a large kitchen with a wood stove, a dining area, and a comfortable sitting room with a massive stone fireplace. Upstairs were 3 bedrooms Adam's, a guest room that would be hers, and a small study filled with books that surprised her with their variety and number. "You're a reader," she observed, running her fingers along the spines. "Winter nights are long," Adam said with a shrug. "Can't always ride into town for company." Once the tour was complete, Adam showed her to her room. "Get some rest," he said. "You look dead on your feet. We can discuss arrangements in the morning." Left alone, Nora sat on the edge of the bed, struck by the surreal turn her life had taken. A week ago, she had been Nora Matthews, wife of Denver businessman Harold Matthews. Now she was a fugitive, hiding on a remote ranch with a stranger who had shown her more kindness in an hour than her husband had in 3 years of marriage. She unpacked her meager possessions, a change of clothes, a hairbrush, a locket containing a miniature portrait of her late mother, and a small pouch of money she'd managed to take from Harold's desk before fleeing. Not enough to start a new life, but perhaps enough to build on the second chance Adam Eastwood had unexpectedly offered. When Nora awoke the next morning, sunlight was streaming through the curtainless windows. She bolted upright, disoriented until the events of the previous day came rushing back. The clock on the bedside table showed it was past 9 later than she'd slept in years. She dressed quickly in her spare dress, which was nearly as travel-worn as the one she'd arrived in, and made her way downstairs. The kitchen was empty, but a note lay on the table beside a plate covered with a cloth. Gone to check the north pasture. Coffee on the stove. Back by noon. Lifting the cloth, Nora found a simple breakfast of biscuits and bacon, likely left hours ago and now cold. Still, her empty stomach wasn't choosy. She ate quickly, then surveyed the kitchen with a critical eye. It was clear a man had been living alone here. While not filthy, every surface needed a good scrubbing, and the organization of the pantry made little logical sense. Determined to prove her worth immediately, Nora rolled up her sleeves and set to work. By the time Adam returned, she had transformed the kitchen. Surfaces gleamed, the floor had been swept and mopped, and she had a stew simmering on the stove made from the somewhat random supplies she'd found in the pantry and root cellar. Adam paused in the doorway, his hat in his hands, taking in the changes. "Well," he said finally, "I knew I needed help, but I didn't realize how much until now." Nora smiled, pleased with his reaction. "I hope you don't mind. I wanted to make myself useful." "Mind? I'm amazed." He stepped further into the kitchen, inhaling deeply. "And that smells better than anything that's come out of this kitchen in months." "It's just a simple stew," Nora said, suddenly self-conscious. "I found some venison in your cold storage. From last fall's hunt," Adam confirmed. "You've worked wonders, Miss Matthews." "Mrs.," she corrected automatically, then frowned. "Though I suppose I'm not really entitled to that anymore." Adam regarded her thoughtfully. "We should probably discuss your situation. Properly this time," Nora nodded, turning to stir the stew to avoid his gaze. "What would you like to know?" "Only what you're comfortable sharing," Adam said. "But I should know what kind of trouble might come looking for you." Nora took a deep breath. "My husband, Harold Matthews, is a prominent businessman in Denver, banking primarily, though he has interests in mining and the railroad as well." She kept her voice steady through sheer force of will. "We've been married 3 years. It was not a happy union." Adam's expression remained neutral. "The bruise on your face," Nora's hand rose unconsciously to her cheek. "This time it was because I refused to entertain one of his business associates who had improper intentions, but there were other times, many other times." She swallowed hard. "I tried to leave once before last year. He found me staying with a friend in Colorado Springs. The friend suffered worse than I did." Adam's jaw tightened. "And now," he was away on business in San Francisco, "I took what little money I could find, some clothes, and ran." She finally looked up to meet his eyes. "I have no illusions. He will look for me. He considers me his property, and Harold Matthews does not give up what he believes belongs to him." Adam was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You're welcome to stay here as long as you need, as my housekeeper, officially with fair wages, but also as someone under my protection." His voice hardened slightly. "I don't take kindly to men who beat women, Mrs. Matthews. Please," she said, "call me Nora." "Nora, then," Adam agreed with a slight smile. "Now let's eat that stew before all your hard work goes to waste." Over the next few weeks, Nora settled into life at the Eastwood Ranch. Adam was true to his word, paying her fairly for her work, keeping his house and preparing meals. The physical labor was a welcome distraction from her fears, and the isolation that had initially seemed daunting became a comfort. Adam himself proved to be excellent company. Though quiet by nature, he was well-read and thoughtful, able to discuss everything from literature to politics. In the evenings, they would often sit by the fire. Adam smoking his pipe while Nora mended clothing or worked on transforming one of his old shirts into something she could wear. "You're quite skilled with that needle," Adam observed one evening as Nora embroidered a simple pattern onto what had once been a flour sack, but was now becoming a serviceable apron. "I was a seamstress before I married," she explained. "My mother taught me." She made dresses for some of Denver's finest ladies. "And how did a seamstress's daughter come to marry a wealthy banker?" Adam asked, then immediately held up a hand. "Forgive me, that's too personal." "No, it's a fair question," Nora said, setting aside her work. "My mother died when I was 19. Consumption. The medical bills took everything we had. I was working in a dress shop when Harold came in to order a gift for his sister." She smiled bitterly at the memory. "He was charming then, attentive. He seemed to value my opinions, said I had natural refinement. When he proposed after a 3-month courtship, it seemed like salvation." Adam nodded, understanding in his eyes. "And afterward?" "Afterward, I learned that what he truly valued was having a pretty ornament to display at social functions. One that would not embarrass him with opinions of her own." Nora's fingers twisted in the fabric of her makeshift apron. "The first time he hit me was 6 months into our marriage when I disagreed with him at a dinner party. He apologized afterward, said it would never happen again. They always say that, don't they?" "So I've heard," Adam said quietly. They sat in companionable silence for a while, the only sounds the crackling of the fire and the distant howl of a coyote. "Do you miss it?" Adam asked eventually. "The city, I mean, the society." Nora considered the question. "Parts of it. I miss the theater, music, having female friends." She looked around at the cozy room. "But I don't miss the constant fear, the walking on eggshells. Here I can breathe." She met his eyes. "I'm grateful, Adam, truly." Adam shifted in his chair, looking slightly uncomfortable with her gratitude. "No need for that. Having decent meals and a clean house is payment enough." But they both knew it was more than that. Something was growing between them, a friendship certainly, but also something deeper, more complicated. Nora found herself watching Adam when he didn't notice, admiring the way he moved with confident grace despite his large frame, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. For his part, Adam began finding reasons to be around the house more often, offering to help with tasks he'd previously left to her. Their comfortable routine continued as spring bloomed fully across the Colorado landscape. Adam took Nora to town only once, to visit his brother's dress shop and get supplies. She wore a wide-brimmed hat and kept her head down, though Adam assured her that Harold's influence likely didn't reach this far into the frontier. Emma, Adam's sister-in-law, was delighted to meet her and immediately offered Nora work doing specialized tailoring that she could complete at the ranch. "The miners' wives are desperate for proper dresses now that there's a real church in town," Emma explained, her hand resting on her rounded belly. "And I simply can't keep up with the demand." Nora accepted gratefully, knowing the extra income would help build her savings. As they rode back to the ranch, she found herself smiling despite the anxiety of being in public. "You did well today," Adam said, glancing at her as he guided the wagon. "Emma likes you." "She's lovely," Nora agreed. "Your brother is a fortunate man. He knows it too," Adam chuckled. "Never lets me forget I'm the lonely bachelor brother while he has a beautiful wife and soon-to-be 3 children. You never wanted that, a family of your own." Adam was quiet for a moment. "I did, still do, I suppose, but ranching is hard, unpredictable work. Many years we barely break even." "Didn't seem fair to ask a woman to share that burden." He glanced at her. "What about you? Children, I mean." Nora's smile faded. "Harold didn't want children, said they would ruin my figure and distract me from my duties as his wife." She looked out at the passing landscape. "I was relieved, honestly. I couldn't imagine bringing a child into that house with that man." Adam nodded, understanding in his silence. They continued the rest of the journey in comfortable quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. That night after dinner, a spring thunderstorm rolled in from the mountains. Rain lashed against the windows as lightning illuminated the sky in brilliant flashes. Nora, who had always been frightened of storms, tried to maintain her composure as she cleared the dinner dishes. A particularly loud crack of thunder made her jump, nearly dropping a plate, not fond of storms. Adam asked gently. Nora shook her head, embarrassed. "Silly, I know." "Not silly at all," Adam said. He rose from his chair and moved to the cabinet in the corner, pulling out a bottle and 2 glasses. "My mother was terrified of them, said it was God bowling in the heavens." He poured a small amount of amber liquid into each glass. "This helps sometimes." Nora accepted the glass hesitantly. "I don't usually." "Just a sip," Adam encouraged. For medicinal purposes, Nora took a small sip and immediately coughed as the whiskey burned its way down her throat. Adam chuckled, not unkindly. "Takes some getting used to," he admitted. Another flash of lightning, followed immediately by a deafening crack of thunder, made the whole house seem to shake. Nora gasped, instinctively stepping closer to Adam. "It's right overhead now," he said, his voice calm and steady, "but it will pass soon enough." Nora nodded, acutely aware of how close they were standing. Adam's presence was reassuring, solid as the mountains themselves. Without thinking, she reached for his hand. Adam froze for a moment, then gently wrapped his fingers around hers. They stood like that, holding hands in the dim lamplight as the storm raged outside, neither speaking but both feeling the shift in the air between them. When the thunder finally began to recede, Nora reluctantly pulled her hand away. "I should finish the dishes," she murmured. "Leave them," Adam said, his voice rough. "It's been a long day," Nora nodded, suddenly unable to meet his eyes. "Good night, then." "Good night, Nora," Adam replied softly. As she climbed the stairs to her room, Nora's mind was a whirl of conflicting emotions. She was still legally married, still in danger, still hiding. And yet, for the first time since she'd fled Denver, she found herself thinking of the future with something like hope. The following weeks brought summer in earnest to the Colorado highlands. The days grew longer and warmer, the landscape erupting in wildflowers that carpeted the meadows surrounding the ranch. Nora found herself falling into a rhythm with Adam, their days filled with work but also with moments of unexpected joy. Adam taught her to ride properly, patiently helping her overcome her fear of the large animals. "Horses sense fear," he explained, helping her into the saddle of a gentle mare named Daisy. "You have to be calm to keep them calm." Nora gripped the saddle horn tightly. "Easy for you to say." "You've been riding since childhood." "And you'll learn just as well," Adam assured her, his hand warm on her back as he adjusted her posture. "Trust yourself and trust Daisy, she won't let you fall." Gradually, Nora's confidence grew, until she could accompany Adam on short rides around the property. He showed her hidden spots of beauty, a small waterfall tucked away in a grove of aspens, a high meadow where elk grazed in the early morning, a stand of ancient pines where eagles nested. "It's paradise," she said one afternoon as they rested their horses by a clear stream. "I never imagined such places existed." Adam smiled, pleased by her appreciation. "Most folks just see the harshness, the winters, the isolation, the work. They miss all this." He gestured to the panorama before them, mountains stretching to the horizon. "I can see why you never left," Nora said softly. Adam's gaze turned to her, something unspoken in his eyes. "There are more reasons now than before," he said quietly. The moment stretched between them, laden with possibility until Daisy whickered and broke the spell. Adam cleared his throat and stood. "We should head back, storm clouds coming in from the west." As they rode home, Nora found herself wondering what might have happened if the horse hadn't interrupted. Would Adam have kissed her? Would she have let him? The thought should have frightened her, but instead it sent a different kind of thrill through her body. That evening, as Nora prepared dinner, Adam received a visitor, Sheriff Hank Daniels from Durango, the same man she'd seen shouting outside the saloon on her first day in town. Nora stayed in the kitchen, out of sight but able to hear their conversation in the front room. "Sorry to ride all this way, Eastwood, but I figured you'd want to know," the sheriff was saying. "Had a man in town yesterday asking questions about a woman. Auburn hair, green eyes, about 5.5 feet tall, said she's his wife, run off with family heirlooms." Nora's blood ran cold. Harold had found her trail. "Don't recall seeing anyone matching that description," Adam said, his voice perfectly casual. "Who's looking for her?" "Fellow named Matthews from Denver. Well-dressed, well-spoken, offering a substantial reward." "How substantial?" The sheriff named a sum that made Nora's knees weak. It was more money than most people in Durango would see in 5 years. "That's generous for some family trinkets," Adam observed. "My thought exactly," the sheriff agreed. "Man seemed awful desperate to find her. Got the feeling those heirlooms weren't his main concern, if you catch my meaning." "I do indeed," Adam said grimly. "He's still in town, left this morning, said he was checking settlements up toward Silverton next." There was a pause. "Look, Adam, I know you keep to yourself out here, but if you've seen this woman—" "I haven't," Adam said firmly. "But I appreciate the warning, Hank. If she turns up, I'll bear in mind there might be more to the story than this Matthews fellow is letting on." After the sheriff departed, Adam found Nora in the kitchen, her face ashen as she gripped the edge of the table for support. "You heard," Adam said. It wasn't a question. Nora nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "The heirlooms he mentioned, they're my mother's jewelry. A few pieces I inherited. He's twisting everything, making me sound like a thief." Adam crossed the kitchen and took her hands in his. "Listen to me, Nora. Hank Daniels is a good man. He was suspicious of Matthew's story, or he wouldn't have ridden all the way out here to warn me." "But the reward," Nora whispered. "Someone will talk. Someone will remember seeing me in town." "Then we need to make sure you're not here if they come looking," Adam said decisively. "I have a line cabin up in the high meadows where the hands stay during summer grazing. It's remote, hard to find unless you know where to look. You'll be safe there until we figure out what to do next." Nora searched his face. "We?" "Yes, we," Adam said firmly. "You're not alone in this anymore, Nora." Relief and gratitude washed over her, and without thinking, she threw her arms around him. Adam stiffened in surprise for just a moment before returning her embrace, his arms strong and secure around her waist. "Thank you," she murmured against his chest. "For everything." Adam's hand came up to cradle the back of her head gently. "You don't need to thank me for basic human decency." "It's more than that," Nora said, pulling back slightly to look up at him. "You've given me a safe harbor when I most needed it. You've asked for nothing in return. You've made me feel—" She hesitated, searching for the right word. "Valued?" Adam's eyes darkened. "You are valued, Nora. More than you know." The air between them seemed to vibrate with tension. Adam's gaze dropped to her lips, and Nora felt her breath catch in her throat. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he lowered his head. The first touch of his lips against hers was gentle, questioning. Nora answered by leaning into him, her hands sliding up to his shoulders. Adam made a sound low in his throat and deepened the kiss, his arms tightening around her. It was nothing like Harold's perfunctory kisses. Adam kissed her like she was precious, like he'd been thinking about this moment for weeks, which, Nora realized with a rush of joy, he probably had been, when they finally broke apart, both breathless. Adam rested his forehead against hers. "I've been wanting to do that since you reorganized my pantry," he admitted with a small laugh. Nora smiled, feeling lightheaded and reckless. "I've been wanting you to." Adam's expression sobered. "Your situation, it complicates things." "I know," Nora sighed. "I'm still legally married." "That's not what concerns me," Adam said. "The law doesn't always get things right. What concerns me is keeping you safe." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "We need to get you to that line cabin, at least until we know Matthews has moved on." Nora nodded reluctantly. The thought of being separated from Adam, even temporarily, made her heart ache, but she knew he was right. "When do we leave?" "First light," Adam decided. "Pack only what you need. I'll bring supplies every few days and let you know when it's safe to return." That night, Nora barely slept, her mind racing with worry about Harold finding her, but also replaying the kiss with Adam over and over. Whatever happened next, she knew her heart was no longer her own. Somehow, without her noticing, she had given it to a quiet cowboy with kind eyes and gentle hands. Before dawn, Adam helped her onto Daisy's back and led them up into the mountains, taking game trails and stream beds to obscure their tracks. The line cabin turned out to be a small but sturdy structure in a high meadow surrounded by aspen groves. Inside was simple: a bed, a table with 2 chairs, a wood stove, and basic supplies. "It's not much," Adam said as he unloaded provisions from his saddlebags, "but you'll be comfortable enough." "It's perfect," Nora assured him, though her voice betrayed her nervousness at being alone in such a remote spot. Adam must have heard it too, because he reached into his coat and pulled out a small revolver. "Do you know how to use one of these?" Nora shook her head. "It's simple enough," Adam said, showing her how to load it, aim, and fire. "Just in case. I don't expect trouble up here. Most folks don't even know this cabin exists, but I'll feel better knowing you can protect yourself." Nora took the gun gingerly, its weight unfamiliar in her hands. "Thank you." Adam showed her the surrounding area, where to get fresh water, which plants were edible, landmarks to help her navigate back to the cabin if she ventured out. Finally, with visible reluctance, he prepared to leave. "I'll be back in 3 days," he promised, lingering in the doorway. "Sooner if I have news," Nora nodded, fighting the urge to beg him to stay. "Be careful if Harold suspects." "I can handle myself," Adam assured her. He stepped closer, cupping her face in his hands. "We'll figure this out, Nora, I promise." He kissed her again, deeply, as if trying to leave her with something to remember in the lonely days ahead. Then he was gone, the sound of his horses' hooves fading as he descended back toward the ranch. The next 3 days were the longest of Nora's life. She tried to keep busy, organizing the cabin, exploring the immediate vicinity, practicing with the revolver, using a fallen log as a target. At night, she lay awake listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the wilderness, jumping at every crack of a branch or howl of a distant wolf. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, Nora was sitting outside the cabin, working on a piece of embroidery she'd brought with her, when she heard approaching hoofbeats. She scrambled to her feet, hand going to the revolver tucked in the pocket of her skirt, then relaxed as she recognized Adam's broad-shouldered silhouette. "Any trouble?" he asked as soon as he dismounted. Nora shook her head, smiling with relief at seeing him again. "None. Just a family of deer that seem to think the clearing is their personal dining room." Adam smiled back, but there was tension around his eyes. "Good, that's good." "What is it?" Nora asked, her smile fading. "Did something happen?" Adam sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Matthews came to the ranch yesterday, had the sheriff with him." Nora felt the blood drain from her face. "What did you tell them?" "That I hadn't seen anyone matching your description," Adam said, "but Matthews was suspicious, insisted on looking through the house, found some of your sewing work." "Did he recognize it?" "I don't think so, but he knows someone's been staying there." Adam's jaw tightened. "He's offering even more money now, told everyone in town you're unstable, dangerous to yourself, making it sound like he's concerned for your welfare rather than hunting you." Nora laughed bitterly. "That sounds like Harold, always the concerned husband in public. Did anyone believe him?" "Some might for that kind of money," Adam admitted. "But Sheriff Daniels pulled me aside afterward, said your husband's manner struck him as off, too controlled, too rehearsed." He touched Nora's bruised cheek, which had faded to a yellowish green. "He's seen men like Matthews before." "So what do we do now?" Nora asked, trying to keep the desperation from her voice. Adam looked out over the mountains, his expression thoughtful. "We have options. You could keep moving. California, maybe, or up to Montana or Wyoming." "Alone." The word came out smaller than Nora intended. Adam's eyes returned to her face. "If that's what you want, or," he hesitated, "or you could stay with me." Nora's heart leaped. "But Harold will eventually give up," Adam finished. "Men like him have short attention spans when things get difficult, and I'd make sure finding you would be very, very difficult." "You would risk that?" For me, Nora asked, scarcely believing what she was hearing. Adam stepped closer, taking her hands in his. Nora, in just a few months, you've become essential to me, more than the ranch, more than anything. If you want to run, I'll help you. If you want to stay and fight, I'll stand beside you. Whatever you decide, I want to be with you. Tears welled in Nora's eyes. I want to stay, she whispered. I'm tired of running, tired of being afraid. She squeezed his hands. But I can't ask you to put yourself in danger for me. You're not asking, I'm offering. Adam's voice was firm. Besides, two people are stronger than one. Together we can face whatever comes. Nora looked up at him, this man who had become her protector, her friend, and now something much more. I can't go home, she said softly. Adam's expression was solemn as he replied, Then you'll build one beside me. The words hung in the air between them, a promise and a challenge all at once. Nora felt something expand in her chest, a hope so fierce it was almost painful. Yes, she said simply. Yes, I will. Adam's face broke into a smile that transformed him, years dropping away as joy lit his features. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her with an intensity that left no doubt about his feelings. When they finally broke apart, Adam rested his forehead against hers. We should get back to the ranch, he said. Face this head-on rather than hiding. I've asked Thomas to look into legal options for ending your marriage. Nora nodded, nervous but resolute. Together. Always, Adam promised. They rode back to the ranch side by side, planning their next steps. Thomas, it turned out, had learned that Nora could potentially file for divorce on grounds of cruelty, especially with witnesses to her injuries. It would be a scandal, but with Adam's unwavering support, Nora found the courage to move forward. The process was not easy. Harold fought the divorce viciously, using his money and influence to try to force Nora to return. There were threatening letters, attempts to bribe local officials, even a confrontation at the ranch one stormy night that ended with Harold nursing a broken nose courtesy of Adam's fist. But Durango rallied around the couple. Emma spread the word among the town's women about Nora's situation, and they in turn influenced their husbands. Sheriff Daniels made it clear that Harold Matthews was not welcome to cause trouble in his town. Even the local judge, impressed by Nora's quiet dignity and the obvious devotion between her and Adam, ruled in her favor despite pressure from Denver. 6 months after Nora first stumbled into Durango, she stood in the town's small church, wearing a simple but elegant dress she had made herself, and became Mrs. Adam Eastwood. Are you happy? Adam asked as they drove back to the ranch that evening, the stars coming out in a clear autumn sky. Nora leaned against his shoulder, her hand secure in his. Happier than I ever imagined possible, she said honestly. I came here with nothing, running for my life. Now I have everything. Adam kissed the top of her head, and we're just getting started. As they approached the ranch, their ranch now, Nora saw it with new eyes. No longer a hideaway or temporary shelter, but a home they would build together, day by day, season by season. What are you thinking? Adam asked, noticing her contemplative expression. Nora smiled up at him. I was thinking that sometimes you have to lose everything to find what you truly need. Adam squeezed her hand. Well, Mrs. Eastwood, what you've found is a man who will spend the rest of his life making sure you never regret your choice. I already know I won't, Nora said with absolute certainty. And as Adam helped her down from the wagon, lifting her into his arms to carry her across the threshold of their home, she knew she had finally found the place where she belonged. In the years that followed, the Eastwood Ranch flourished under their joint care. Nora's seamstress skills brought in additional income, and Adam's careful management of their cattle herd led to increasing prosperity. They added onto the house, built a proper workshop for Nora's growing tailoring business, and weathered the inevitable hardships of ranching life with resilience and mutual support. 2 years after their wedding, Nora gave birth to a daughter they named Elizabeth, after Adam's mother. A son, James, followed 3 years later. The children grew strong and happy in the freedom of ranch life, adored by both parents and surrounded by the beauty of the Colorado wilderness. Harold Matthews eventually remarried a society woman from San Francisco and seemed to forget about his first wife, much to Nora's relief. The threat that had loomed so large faded with time, becoming just another story they would someday share with their children as an example of overcoming adversity. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Adam surprised Nora with a special gift, a small, bound book. Inside, he had pasted photographs, pressed flowers from memorable occasions, and written the story of how they met and fell in love. "So we never forget," he explained as Nora turned the pages with tears in her eyes. "How a brave woman with nothing but a satchel and determination changed both our lives forever." Nora closed the book and looked up at the man who had become the center of her world. "I had nothing, and you offered me everything," she said softly. "How can I ever thank you enough?" Adam smiled, the same smile that still made her heart skip even after all these years. "You already have," he said, gesturing to their home, their children playing in the yard, the life they had built together from nothing. Every single day. As the sun set over their mountain home, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Nora Eastwood knew with absolute certainty that she had found something most people search for all their lives, not just a house or a family, but a true home for her heart. And it had all begun with a chance encounter, an act of kindness, and the courage to build something new when returning to the old was impossible. In Durango, Colorado, they became something of a legend: the desperate woman who couldn't go home, and the cowboy who helped her build one beside him instead. Their story was whispered by young girls dreaming of their own future, retold at weddings and celebrations, a reminder that even in the harshest landscapes of life, love could take root and flourish if given the chance. And for Nora and Adam, that love was more than enough. It was everything.